Chapter 25. Early the next morning, a clanging bell at daybreak jolted Bach out of bed. Wingate dashed up the stairs and went to the large window overlooking the front of the house. "Two young people, revelers by the look of it." Outside the front gate, a young woman and man shouted, "Hello in there!" and "Anybody home?" as they rang the iron bell posted outside the defensive spell's perimeter. Isabella and Aventil emerged from their room. He slipped on a shirt and gazed around Wingate's wide frame. "Who are they? They don't live here, at least to my knowledge." "I I don't know, either, but I'll go see." "Umra, wait!" Isabella cautioned. "They could be—" "No worries, your majesty. I know what to do." And she bolted out the front door to greet the visitors at the front gate. "Any idea what they're saying?" Aventil peeked around the edges of the drawn curtains. Ma couldn't hear the discussion outside, but Wingate drew his sword from its scabbard nonetheless. After a few moments of animated conversation, the two revelers walked down the street, and Umra returned to the house. "What did they want?" Wingate returned his sword to its sheath. The others also crowded around, awaiting her answer. Only Kotarian remained asleep through all the excitement. "Just a couple of young folk who lost their friend at a pub last night. Oh, and these friends they are looking for. An odd bunch of characters, for sure. Let's see. One fella is tall, real thin but good looking. Another has collar-length brown hair, powerful build, and short. Sorry, Buck. There's a blonde fella who they called a name I won't repeat." Isabella put her arm around Aventil as they listened intently. Perhaps it is his lingering injury, but did Aventil pull away from the princess? Then they mentioned two older fellas, one real fit but ailing, and the other kind of scrawny. "I resent that." Tavana reached for a leftover piece of cheese on the counter. "I am naturally trim." "I can believe it. I bet you could eat the guternals into the poorhouse. Not that I'd mind much. Oh, and there's a young lady with curly brown locks. Anyway, I told him I'd seen no such folk, and that I was here all by myself, as the lord and lady of the house are absent, and I'm just a servant girl meant to clean the place. What sent 'em on their way? I reckon they was asking at every house on the street." Umra tied her apron around her waist to finish cooking. She smiled as she tapped her long index finger on the kitchen counter. "You know, there was one funny thing. Did I tell you I've worked a pub or two? They was still tipsy from their night on the town, talking real loud and slurring their words. Just your average drunkards. Other than they didn't smell of alcohol a bit, and fingered the daggers hid under their shirts while we was talking." She looked around at the group, and her smile having vanished. "I never went to school, but I ain't stupid. I know you're in a whole lot of trouble. If I'd let 'em in, they would have slit all our throats, mine included. Am I wrong?" Isabella made eye contact with her companions, then spoke. "No, you are completely right, Umra. We are in terrible danger, and there are bad people who want us dead for reasons not completely clear even to us. But we know it involves a situation in Oso Creek. Family farms have been attacked, villagers killed. By what? We do not know, and that is what we intend to discover. I believe it is safe to say our two visitors are part of the mystery behind this crime." Umra whistled. "Whew, I reckon it's a good thing I run 'em off then. Princess Isabella and her friends on the run and hiding out with old Irma. That is quite frightening," Bach offered. "No, amazing. I can't imagine anything more exciting. Now sit down, all of you. I'll have breakfast on the table in a minute. I got a hot mug of coffee for your majesty, and I made sure to cook an extra help on a sausage for Lord Tovano." The sorcerer stroked his chin. "I like this young woman, Anne. A few hours later, they made their final preparations to continue the journey to Oso Creek. Aventil strapped his bow and quiver to the saddle of his stallion and secured his sword to his belt. Wingate helped Corrigan back into his saddle. The injured commander was determined to ride again today. Bach applied another round of his curative poultice, but he could see the redness of infection setting into Corrigan's wound. He tightly bandaged the man's shoulder and prayed his measures would suffice. Isabella pulled on a pair of riding gloves and her wide-brimmed hat. Despite the hardships and danger they had encountered, she looked as pulled together as she did the day they left Ithanel, wearing a flowing cotton blouse over tight tan pants and black riding boots polished to a bright shine. "Wait, you're gonna need this." Umar ran into the brick driveway carrying a canvas satchel. "I've made you some lunch for your trip." Isabella smiled. "How thoughtful, Irma. Umra, I will make certain your kindness is rewarded once we return to Ithanel." "Sure there's not room for me on this trip? I mean, this is my one real chance of getting out of Nassim." Isabella leaned forward and took Umra's hand in her own. "My sweet friend, I wish I could, but I cannot put you in harm's way, even though I know your courage is up to the challenge. I tell you what, though. Go to the royal palace in 2 weeks' time and ask for the head of housekeeping. I will make sure you have good employment and quarters within the palace waiting for you." "A generous offer indeed. Thank you, your majesty." Umra curtsied again, but her chin sank to her chest as she returned to the house. They made their way through Nassim's quieter side streets, heading north of the city. Just days earlier, these streets had been active with people going to their jobs, delivery carts bringing in new goods, and early shoppers looking for the freshest produce, meats, and fish. But on this morning, Bach only noticed a few stragglers moving in and out of buildings quickly. Scattered horseback riders shared the streets, but nothing like what he would have expected. Bach didn't like the normal cacophony of city life, but he liked this eerie quiet far less. That didn't stop Wingate from watching every home and storefront for signs of trouble. Bach rode up beside him, slowly so as not to alarm the guardian. "You are good at your work, Wingate. We all feel safer with you on guard." "Be watchful yourself. I cannot monitor every corner. Those cutthroats who attacked us are not working alone, and we will be near the border." Wingate's warning hardly seemed an idle threat. Bach grew up hearing stories about the cruelty of Masork warlords. The Masork Empire had been crushed trying to invade Imarina 300 years ago. The Imarinians, under the command of Queen Imberia and the legendary sorcerer Sonorian, destroyed the Masork army and the country's central government. Since then, a loose consortium of warlords, who were more criminals than leaders, ruled the remnants of the Masork Empire. The warlords had an easy truce, with each controlling their piece of territory via their marauders, private armies that terrorized the Masork citizenry, collected protection money, and occasionally fought with rival gangs of marauders. Bach's mind returned to the quiet streets of Nassim and the ride to Oso Creek. Their business wouldn't take them across the border, and as dangerous as the Masork marauders could be, they weren't foolish enough to invade Imarina. Or, at least he hoped. In any case, I'll be glad when we finish our business in Oso Creek and get on the road back to Ithanel. Meanwhile, Kotarian rode beside Isabella that morning. "The streets are unnaturally quiet, your majesty. Something has changed in the past 3 days. For the worse," he said. "Agreed, Kotarian. And I suspect the reason has to do with our mission to Oso Creek. But that isn't what you want to speak about, is it, Kotarian?" "Quite true. Your reputation for perceptiveness is well earned, your majesty. and I respect that, and you." He made a point of bowing in his saddle. "What I have to say is of a more personal nature, and I suspect you aren't going to like it. Nevertheless, I must say it for the sake of the mission, and for your own good." He continued, "Your generosity toward the serving class is commendable, Your Majesty. Sometimes I fear you are too kind to them." "What do you mean?" "I mean, they envy those of us in the noble class. We have everything that they want, all they could dream about. Yes, they fulfill a vital role in our society, in their rightful place. But if I may be so blunt, do not confuse loyalty with love, Your Majesty." He jabbed his thumb over his shoulder as he bounced on his saddle. "Take that servant girl, Umra. Yes, she kept our confidence. But how many servants would have jumped at the chance to earn a reward at our expense? It could have ended badly, you know." Eyes wide, Isabella turned her head to Kotarian. "But it did not. Umra was put to the test, and she proved her character. That is all any of us can do." He pulled his flask from his jacket and took a sip. "Perhaps. Just remember, nobility isn't something that can be donned like a cloak, you know." Isabella's face trembled, then froze. She beckoned Kotarian forward with her index finger. When he leaned to her in his saddle, she put her hand to his ear and whispered, "I understand your meaning, Kotarian. So consider this a request from a friend. Do not hurt Bok. Please." Isabella pulled away from him and rode ahead, to leave Kotarian with his own thoughts. But she turned her head to deliver one final message. "And if we speak of this again, it will not be peer to peer, but crown princess to royal subject. That is not a conversation you wish to have."